It says planning advisory 7 minutes ago, which that's not a bad
I
thing.
kind of laid them
Then
up
it says
there.
offline.
It says what?
Offline. But it was on 7 minutes ago, apparently.
That's good.
No idea.
We were on 7 minutes ago.
Well, no, but it might have just been like on off.
Glad I showed up late. It's in excellent
Nope.
condition.
We're
Looks
cooking.
good.
Oh, sweet.
We are cooking with gas. Yep, there's my thumbs up. Yep.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Webcam.
Just make sure everybody's had their
I
mic.
don't know about sound. I'll just turn this on for. Yep.
The stream can be accessed again from the managed.
I wouldn't push any more
Don't
buttons.
anymore, it's working, Scott.
Yeah, I
Oh,
wouldn't.
it's working?
I wouldn't. Don't touch any more buttons. Yeah.
Working? Don't hit it. Make sure everybody has their mics on.
We'll call this meeting of PAC to order. Roll call. Additions, deletions, and/or approval of the agenda.
I
I
would
moved.
move that the agenda be approved as circulated.
I'll second that.
It's been, the motion is approved or seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Declarations of conflict of interest. Hearing none. Approval of the minutes of March 21st, 24.
I move to approve the minutes of February 21st, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been approved, moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. Planning and Development Report. I think we'll call on Mr. Day. Most likely.
All right. I'm in the process of losing my voice, so I'm going to
Uh-oh.
be brief in my comments this evening.
Get close to the
Right
mic.
into the mic. I'll climb right into it. Okay. So, let's see. I think it's exciting that the Simply Golf, we're kind of adding to that establishment with a small cafe. Just waiting on the food safety permit before that permit is released. And they also have lots of other ideas about things they'd like to do on the site. Can't hear me? Be right there. Jeez. And so just as we get information, as we have time to process it, they're proceeding, and it's from the other things are going well. The exciting also that we've now got everything sorted out for All About You, so they can get that building fixed up and start using that rear addition. Talking to Jane, she told me some of what she used to do in terms of holding classes and courses from people, and people travel there from all over, which is great for the town to have that pull into the downtown. Also, things are sorted out on the new pharmacy on Main Street. The code consultant came up with an approach that the building inspector agreed upon to sort out some of the challenges that they had there. There's, let's see, some of the stuff I'm just going to skip over because it's just standard development. There was a home being built on Prince Albert that I thought was going awfully slow, but I think that there's a lot of self-work going on there. And so it is proceeding according to plan. And we do have another inspection that just occurred there, and all's good. Lots of mini homes coming and going. And we've got a new business operating now with a full occupancy on Main Street at your place, 1822 Main. Byron, you're just here to see what goes on at these meetings, or?
Yeah.
Great. Welcome.
Thanks. Can I ask questions?
Doesn't normally work that way, but perhaps there's an opening too.
Generally at the end of the meeting,
Yeah.
but
Was there a particular topic?
No.
Just in case you hear something that you think is shocking and you need to comment on it.
I can comment on that.
Yeah.
There is a portion at the end of the meeting for
Yeah.
comments from, so can you, through, Mr. Chair, through you to Sean, just on 1822, can you enlighten us as to what that development is exactly that's happening there?
Sure. So the upper level has been completely gutted, and a new design has been initiated to establish 5 residential units on the upper floor. And there was a commercial occupancy, or a space on the front of the building for a new commercial occupancy, and that's what this permit's about. There was also a permit issued for the 5 units. And there's some other residual work that has to get done on the lower level as well to just tidy up some fire safety related items. And there's going to, Byron's already started working in the back, creating an improved parking area in the back. And there'll be some landscaping involved in that as well.
I think I saw some machinery there today.
That's right.
That prompted my question.
Yeah,
I guess.
and, going forward, there'll be, some work on the outside of the building too, to tighten it up and, bring maybe some color back to the main street.
That is great news.
So just if I could, Mr. Chair, add, I've spoken with Byron, the owner, or the manager, I guess, about the commercial development program that we have. So he's giving some thought to whether he wants to step forward on that or not. So should he choose to, then he would be eligible, and we've provided the information so that he can make that decision.
Excellent. Andy?
Very familiar with that building, and delighted to hear what is taking place, and also some comments in the community that are positive on the person that's doing the work there as well. But the being quite familiar with that building, is there actually room for 5 residential units upstairs?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's that big, is it?
Well, and if you
Yes,
design
I
efficiently,
remember
you
it as
can
a
put a lot of
dance
units
hall and so on many
Really?
years ago.
Yeah.
Huh.
Is that one there? I've seen it there wrong.
There won't be
So-
much room to dance when the 5 units are complete.
But certainly room for the 5 full baths and everything in there as well. Eh?
Maybe showers. I'm not sure about bathtubs.
Showers,
but-
yeah, wow. Yeah, well, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Well, it's going to be great to have some new units in downtown.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Well, in the mix of residential and commercial, on the main street, I think is something that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring some
great to see
vitality
happen.
to it,
Yeah,
We need
exactly.
lots more of it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to get into the details because we're still working through them right now, but we do have another application for a development agreement for a property on Old Truro Road. It's going to, provide quite a lot more housing in town, and you'll be seeing probably an initial draft of an agreement and a discussion in the next planning meeting.
It'll be a development agreement?
Yes. So kind of similar to what we're looking at on Acadia.
Yes.
I've got the geotechnical drilling in here on east of Acadia, and right now we don't have any news on it that can be shared publicly, but it's good to know that the partners who were involved, decided to ante up and get that work done and find out what capability or capacity there is for development in that area. That's exciting.
So just on that, if I might just add a little bit of color commentary, the drilling program has been completed. It's probably going to take a month or maybe more because there were tests done and analysis has to occur and reports have to be written. Those won't come to the town unless the partners choose to share it with us. But just to give you a sense that, just because holes were drilled doesn't mean that something's happening by next Friday, sort of thing, right? It's going to take a while. But a good step forward, and it'll be interesting to find out after 30-plus years of sitting there if the land is stable enough to actually bear, residential or commercial development.
We didn't strike oil, I guess, huh?
No sight of oil yet.
Should have had a contest.
Yeah.
There were lots of questions. It generated a lot of activity and questions, at least anyway.
You wouldn't be allowed to pump it out of the ground anyway.
True.
So just briefly on Acadia Avenue, as everyone here is aware, we've had approval in principle by PAC. We've got first reading by council, and we have the public hearing coming up at the April 29th meeting of council. So that's exciting. Hopefully all will go well there. Nothing on the flag lot thing because there just wasn't time to work on that. We have had another meeting with a group that had previously put forward a plan under the innovative housing complex, and they're looking at things differently in a way that I think is doable, and it's looking promising as well. But we've decided, they're also involved in some other projects right now, and we've decided to do them in a stepwise fashion instead of trying to do everything all at once, because neither side has the time to or capacity to do that. So, and they're good with that. We have another couple of units potentially going on Truro Road in that same area, but it will be a variance process and a subdivision to provide for that. So there's a little bit of work to do before we get there, but that's moving along. And I think we've now done everything that has to be done to have those lots move forward, the Dufferin and Drummond lots.
The CAO and myself signed the paperwork today at the lawyer's office with regard to the sale of both Dufferin and Drummond.
Perfect. I know at least in the case of one of those, I think we'll see some action on that pretty quickly. There was an application for a subdivision and a rezoning on Lower or Southern Church down where it meets South Main. There's a large property in that area that has both a home and also a commercial building on it, and they were looking at not only subdividing it, which is fine, but there was an ambition to change the zoning to a commercial zoning. And I've been looking at this, and I can certainly see our way through to the subdivision, but because the area is designated as a residential area, and just due to the nature of our policies, there doesn't look like there's a good way to do a rezoning there. That said, it is an existing non-conforming use, and with the provisions we've got around non-conforming uses, I don't think it's going to prove to be a problem. But before going any further on it, I'm going to be speaking with the applicant just to discuss it. So just in case anyone's speaking with them, it's ongoing, but that's how things look like they're going to shake out at this point.
Yeah.
Do you have a time frame on that?
When that conversation will happen?
When this will unfold? Yeah.
Well, the subdivision can happen anytime. There's nothing that will stop that from going forward. The conversation can happen probably next week.
So that's residential subdivision? The subdivision part of it is residential?
It would be carving away the commercial from the residential, but it's an
Right.
existing non-conforming use. So
Right.
So it's a single lot now.
Right.
With a
With both.
residence on one side and a commercial on
Yeah.
another. And the subdivision is to separate the two put it into two lots instead of one.
Yeah.
And with one being commercial?
Correct.
Hopefully.
A non-conforming
Hopefully
commercial.
commercial,
Right.
under non-conforming.
There's two at the bottom of that portion of church. There's commercial uses on either side of the street at that juncture.
Yeah. Because the buses and whatnot are on
Correct.
the other side.
Yeah. I was excited by that whole electrolyzer thing at is it Balladois or Balladis? Not sure how to pronounce the name of the company out by the exit 21.
Lotus.
Ballotus. But there hasn't been anything new on that. They were going to do some water testing on our water to see if it suited their needs, but I haven't heard anything back. I think perhaps there will be further conversation later in the meeting on Barker Lane. And, we're now using, as you know, Town Suite, and it's it's used by several of the municipalities in this area, so it makes sense for us to be using it as well. This is for permit tracking and kind of putting everything into the cloud, and it's been quite useful, but it's very rigid in terms of our ability to custom tailor it to our needs. And so I was cold called by an organization, or perhaps it was CIO Weirs who was cold called, and he put them on to me, by an organization that has a new cloud-based permit tracking and bylaw enforcement tracking software. So I had an initial online meeting with them. It ran over, probably because I ended up being late getting into it. That was my fault. I was in another meeting that ran over. And their system is, or their approach is very user-friendly. The user interface is great, but we haven't talked about cost at this point, so I'm just letting you know that there's a bit of exploration going on around that.
And if I could, just a little bit more color commentary on that as well. You know, frankly, Westville hasn't needed up-to-date software for some period of time. And with the sorts of things that Byron's doing in town and some of the other things that, you know, we're hoping, you know, some of the other discussions that are underway, it could become important to have more access to more modern software in the not so distant future. Would be a very good problem to have. And so I think we need to start thinking, and I guess, you know, raising it here is to kind of get you used to the concept of, you know, if we go from a place where we're seeing 1 or 2 dwellings a year to applications on a kind of almost on a monthly basis or something like that, it becomes important to have technology that allows us to be efficient and effective and nimble. And so I don't think we're quite there yet, but I'm kind of signaling that we could get there fairly quickly if we stay on the trend line we're on. And, you know, it would make sense to spend some, you know, as long as it's not stupid amount of money, spend some money on making sure that we are able to deal with development in a modern and efficient and nimble way.
It's a good problem to have, I think.
Correct.
So the next thing on the list is just a kind of a heads up that there's some pressure to move on the major plan amendment coming from certain of the towns, and I'm concerned about trying to do this in the midst of everything else that we've got going on. But there's a meeting next week that I'll be attending to discuss this further with the CAOs and see if we can come to a place of agreement about how to proceed. So more on that anon.
Is that just, Mr. Chair, through you to Sean? Is it realistic with the upcoming elections in the fall that any of that will get moved between now and October?
I think it depends entirely on the extent to which they want to change things.
Fair
I
enough.
think that if we focus on the things that need to get changed, you know, desperately, I think that we can do it.
Yeah.
But if we bite off too much, then it would be very difficult.
Then you're going to stall. Yeah, it's too much. Okay. As I expected.
Okay, this is a redundant one that I already spoke about, the Church Street application. There is no, the variance on 1963 Drummond, that's done now. It's in place, but a different purchaser came forward. So they still have the ability to take advantage of that variance if they decide not to consolidate the lot. They do own the adjoining lot as well. We do have a request to discharge site plan approval, and perhaps CAO Weirs can speak to that, because I think that we haven't gotten it done yet, but I think there's a reason for it, and I'm not aware of what it is. So.
Yeah, I think it's just an issue of getting around to doing it.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think there's any problem. I just haven't made the call to legal counsel yet.
Okay, thank you.
It's not C2, is it?
Yeah.
It is or isn't?
I think it is, yeah. I don't recall.
Be-
Do you remember what the current zoning is?
So the zoning is institutional, and it remains institutional.
1269?
There was a site plan approval on it to allow office uses,
Okay. Oh, and that's the part they're going to discharge.
right, because there's no
Because we-
intention to
to
have an
go-
office.
yeah.
The original one was for office.
So
Correct.
This is Drummond,
Approval.
right?
So 1269 is also simply golf?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
So originally their
remember it was
request was
Right,
for
yeah,
office.
I appreciate that. So my
And
other
so
question,
it's, so the discharge is
right,
to discharge the previous development agreement, or site plan
Site plan
approval,
approval.
because it was
Right.
focused on office.
right.
They
Now-
changed direction.
Now they're doing as of right.
Correct.
With, so it's interesting that they're requesting for the
Just
off,
to- It's
for the,
just to clean it up, right?
okay.
So it's not that they need it, other than just to clean up,
Oh, they just,
clean up the record.
The paperwork.
oh, I get you.
Thank you, that's what I'm
Yes.
It's more
trying
a
to,
paper,
that's what I'm trying to
it's more of a
stumble to say.
paper matter, to my knowledge.
Correct, yeah, it's not an approval issue, it's just to clean up the issue.
Right, so they're not asking to put offices in there.
No.
They're asking to
Just the opposite. in fact,
Right,
just
okay.
to-
I was gonna say, because it'd be odd for them to ask for offices, whereas a
No.
cafe may not align with the as
Right,
of
and,
right.
and what had
Okay.
happened is that we had
Right.
you'd approved offices in that previous iteration, and that's what the site plan was.
Right.
Now they
Makes
they
sense.
changed their direction, they didn't need that approval because it was as of right, because of the recreational angle, right?
So they just want to discharge or
And
just.
so they just want to clean up the paperwork.
Yeah,
Yeah.
understandable, okay.
We have, actually, it's interesting, we have another one, and it didn't make it in here. There's a property being sold, and the solicitors found an old development agreement from, I think, the 80s or perhaps early 90s.
No.
And it creates confusion about what the use of the property is.
It's Westville.
Gobbler.
And, yeah, we're just waiting to see if the property owners who are selling are going to be submitting a request to have the development agreement discharged. It allowed the use of an office in a residential home, and it creates confusion for the new owners as to what they're allowed to do with the space. So I've written a memo to the CAO indicating that I suggest we do, should it come to us, the request, that we do discharge that agreement.
Yeah, and I think, just not, obviously we'll need to look at the details, but the prima facie case would be that it makes no sense to maintain that agreement in the face of where where a new owner may want to go, so.
Principally, it's
I don't think
because
they would have- I don't think the town should have any problem with discharging that agreement.
the language in that agreement, the way it was drafted, seemed to preclude other uses than the approved use in the agreement, which is what is creating the problem. There was a zoning confirmation letter that I processed, and initially I used the zoning information that came from Town Suite. And then I thought about it a little bit longer, and I was reminded of all the changes that occurred, I guess, in 2023 around lots that were R2 zoned, and then through a kind of a massive rezoning became C2 lots. And I went back and checked the file from that era and found out that that was the case, which is what spurred me on. You'll see elsewhere that I've been working on getting our zoning information updated through updating GIS, passing that through to the person who then connects it to Town Suite to update that information, and also getting a new property layer in our zoning mapping, because it's very out of date at this point. So I corrected that confirmation letter before I sent it out. So we had a slew of dangerous non-sightly orders, and I think that they're just all in process at this point.
So those are just all complaints as of now? We haven't had a report from the inspector?
I think that one of them is, it's a rented mobile home, and that will be dealt with by the owner of
Right.
that. And one of them I anticipate, although apparently I was just speaking with the inspector, he hasn't heard back from the one on Purvis, And the one on Acadia, I think that there's going to be a presentation to council on that one, if I'm not mistaken. That would also be at the 29th, meeting on the 29th.
Generally, the building inspector will come and present to council
Right.
with a recommendation.
That, I believe, will be on the 29th.
On the 29th, okay.
It would be worth going by and taking a look.
Yes.
I see that I'm going to have to chase down the people with the apartment on Drummond that did the illegal conversion, because I haven't had anything new from them for quite a while.
Scott, can I pop back? Because I just wanted to ask a question about the 1010 Evans Way. I thought last Planning Advisory Committee meeting, we talked about the fact that the trailer court owner was going to demolition
Yes.
that. Is that still?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned, yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
I think the people who were living in it just disappeared, so,
For quite some time.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can also perhaps expect one on Diamond Street as well, a complaint coming in at some point.
It's unfortunate when we lose buildings, when they aren't maintained so as to continue being useful. It's a shame in a time when we so need housing.
Once again, Mr. Chair, once again, good time to remind people that unsightly inspections are generated by complaint-driven process by citizens. Council members are not involved in that, cannot drive around and say, well, we better do an unsightly on that one, or whatever. It has to come from residents, and they have to file a formal complaint. The process is pretty simple.
Yeah,
And
I wasn't
generates the
planning I wasn't planning to be the complainant there.
No, I didn't raise it for that.
I certainly knew that.
I didn't raise it for that reason, Councilor McKinnon. I just, I think it's important that every opportunity we get to get that information out to people as to how that process works. 'Cause
That's
I think,
right.
I think sometimes people wonder, why isn't council, doing something with this building or that building or whatever? Surely they can do something, and it has to be initiated by a citizen complaint process.
And some people are very concerned, but they don't want to be the person that files the complaint as well, and that
And
happens
it's
quite
anonymous.
often.
The complaint, our building inspector does not arrive at the residence and say, John Doe filed a complaint against you, and do the inspection.
Yep.
The only time the person's identity would come to the front would be if it went to a court matter. It became a court matter, and it'd be required for the complainant to then appear. But other than that, it's never divulged.
And they very seldom become a court matter.
I haven't seen one since I've been
No.
here.
So just today, I finished processing a new subdivision on Spring Garden Road. It's one large lot turned into two lots. And I anticipate that, although I haven't had direct communication on this, I do anticipate that there will be applications for buildings on those, but they probably will be modular buildings, and so there's a long queue already. So it's not that they wouldn't like to put them on right away, it's just that they've got so many that they're building right now that it's going to take them a while to have ones ready for these lots.
That's on Spring Garden, you said, Sean?
Yes. I think it's, is it tomorrow evening, there's going to be a presentation both on the active transportation as well as on the public transportation, which is fantastic that that's going to happen together. I think that really makes a lot of sense.
Tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock,
Here,
here in Chambers, public engagement session, both active transportation and the transit pilot.
It's excellent.
We need input. from
CIO
citizens.
Weirs was showing me the brochures that were done for the public transit project. They look fantastic, so. You would have all received the copy I sent out of the study that was done by the students, and there's some interesting information in that. I'm going to speak to that a little bit later. And let's see, town activity, town suite. I've already spoken about GIS work that I've been doing, trying to get our zoning map up to date, and also trying to get all the layers showing services and things sorted out. It's an ongoing process. I think that we may get a little bit of help from the GIS tech who works for Pictou County. I was speaking with him today, and he feels that he can give me a hand fairly readily on those. And yeah, I think that we're also, and maybe CIO Weirs will talk about this later, from an engineering perspective, I think that we're getting closer to being able to make an arrangement for engineering services. So that's everything I had on that report. I think.
Mr. Chair, can I just make a comment on one item that Sean has in his report, and that's the all about you.
Right.
For those of us that were around the table when this issue arose several years ago now, I think I speak for all of us when I think I can say this safely, that it's exceptionally good and welcome to see that issue is finally resolved. I mean, because we were, as a council and as PAC, if those of us that were here remember, we wanted that business to survive. We wanted it to thrive, and we realized the potential that what it brought to our town, and the magnitude of the business that they do. And it was just an unfortunate list of circumstances that led us to where we were. And I'm just so happy to see that resolved personally. And I think that all of us that were around the table and had the discussions at the time, it was a difficult one, for us, because we were advised by council and by our insurance company and so on that we were to hands off, stay away until this is resolved. And it was a tough thing for all of us to not speak publicly about it, or to the owners, in fact, and assure them that we were trying to get this resolved. So it was that's a good one to have resolved. That's all I can say.
One of the things I was really grateful for with respect to that is that they had been really good to record with a lot of photographs any work that was done on the site, as it would have been a challenge to go at this point, after this much time had gone by, to get approvals in place had that not been the case. So that was very helpful.
Wondering if we could bounce back to 1804 Main, the pharmacy situation.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had input into the possible plans for where the Salvation Army outlet was? There has been some design work done apparently, and it's
Right. I think that they were looking at what they could do just by acquiring that site.
Yes.
And I think that they are interested in acquiring more land in order to expand what they want to do. And I'm still hopeful that the mayor's friend will grab that building, spin it around, and put it on the other side of the street and fix it up. It will fit perfectly. The angle on the front is actually going to match up just nicely.
I have no conflict in that matter, by the way. Just for the record, now that has been spoken, I have no involvement in that process.
No, it
whatsoever.
actually would be a challenging project, but I think it would be great to see that these old buildings, they're well built, and they can be reused and they can be moved. And I didn't mean to put you in a difficult position, Mr. Mayor. I know you have
I've been there before.
you've got no skin in that game, but
Rushton's and 900 bars of ivory, or 9,000 bars of ivory soap will do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
more about the
Exactly.
wires. There's also a lot of beautiful stone in the foundation that could be quite nice as well. And we have guys with cranes around here as well. So that was it for that report. Thank you for the comments and the questions. Okay, wake my computer back up here.
Moving along to the Church Street application for rezoning and subdivision.
Right, so we actually, I think, have discussed that now through the report.
Would you be willing, Mr. Chair, to accept a motion to accept Sean's report?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I would move to accept the planning, Mr. Day's planning advisory report as circulated, planning and development report as circulated.
I'll second that.
Motion moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed again? Motion carried.
Thank you. So getting back to the natural areas report by the students, I found it actually fascinating to read. It was it went into a lot of detail that I wasn't expecting to see. I think it was beautifully written. I expect that the professor had some hand in crafting that, and it raises, I think, to our attention the fact that we have been kind of ignoring these water bodies, and this is not just Westville. This is kind of a universal thing, and they have the potential to really add not only amenity in terms of helping us manage stormwater, but also in kind of softening our impact on the natural world if we kind of treat them with some respect. And so I haven't heard back yet. I've suggested that it would be interesting if there were any students that wanted to do a further study on the matter, to take a look at what the abilities of municipalities are to actually make the kind of changes happen, particularly on private lands, that were referenced in the report. So fingers crossed that they find that to be an interesting prospect, because I think it would be really helpful and insightful. I wish I'd known they were coming up to the town to do a walkabout. That would have been fun to go along on. So did anyone have any questions or comments on what came of it, or do you want to carry it forward to the next meeting when you've had more time to look at it and maybe take a wander around town and look at things?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would think it's something, I think we keep it on the burner, not let it dry, because there's a lot of information in there.
There is,
I was
absolutely.
amazed at, and it gives you a totally different look of the town. I mean, to me at least anyway, reading it, it was like, God, I didn't know that, and and the potential for various development things of a natural nature, right?
Well, and it was, on top of that, they also suggested that there were some areas of, built infrastructure in terms of amenities that we may want to look at in certain areas too. And I thought that would be interesting to chase that down a little bit further as well.
No, I think there's a lot of good information in there, but it's going to take some time for us to digest it a little bit. And but I would like to see us bring it forward at some point in time to delve into a little bit, and through your eyes, Sean, with suggestions as to practicality of the benefit and assets and some of the things that could come from this knowledge that we now have information.
I'm going to be happy to report that back to Barry Taylor and his students.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone would object to a small presentation at the committee of the whole as well, to kind of decipher some of the cryptic language in it as well. It was well done, but it was a lot.
Yeah, it is. You think, oh, this is only a short report, but then you read it, and there's a lot in there.
Yes.
Presentation would be helpful, really.
I think we'll make, if the CAO I'm sure it'll be on the whiteboard tomorrow for CA, for COW in the future. Yeah. That's a great idea, yeah.
I'll ask them about that.
Extra credit.
Right on.
Yeah.
After the school year.
So just some quick updates. We've already spoke about the 24-unit development or proposed development on Acadia by development agreement. We have council agreed to release another property as surplus to municipal need, and there is growing interest in seeing more of that happen. And I think the idea is for us to go back and take another look at what properties the town owns and can make available, and be sort of strategic about what ones we release, how often we release them. But it's great that there is a growing excitement and interest in developing these properties, and particularly the smaller, trickier ones, because I think that, for some while, people just thought they weren't useful for anything, and we now know that that's not the case. I have on here updates about the geothermal energy potential, but I'm not sure if we have anything.
Yeah, I can.
Potential, you mean?
Potential.
Yeah, the potential. I can. Last week, experts from the government of Nova Scotia did come out and look at the spring in question. They took temperature measurements. I think I had told you all before that there had been a Fahrenheit Celsius mix-up in reporting of
You were
the-
quite excited.
I was very excited when I thought that the temperature was being
Celsius.
was being expressed in Celsius, and it was actually being expressed in Fahrenheit. So it's less interesting. However, the reality is that the water doesn't freeze. It is well above freezing, and modern geothermal or heat exchangers only need a couple of degrees of difference to actually generate quite a bit of heat. Because anyway, I won't go into the technicalities, not mostly because I don't really understand it. So there is still useful. It's still useful to continue to pursue further investigation of that particular site. To that end, later this week, I am meeting with representatives of a program that provides funding to explore these sorts of activities. So we'll have some meetings. There are a number of different sources of funds to undertake both, a couple of feasibility and business case development. And then there are not grant programs, but quite low-cost loans to assist with actually development of these sorts of things. So, while it's not nearly as hot as the water's not nearly as warm as I thought it was, it still makes a lot of sense to investigate. We are, at some point, some senior level of government somewhere will be requiring municipalities to get to net zero. And if we can get ourselves moving down that path before we have the kind of proverbial regulatory gun to our head, that would be a good thing. So I propose to continue to kind of investigate that. I'll be reporting back occasionally. This isn't something that's happening, in the next month or two. It'll be a long-term project. But, in 24 or 48 months, we might be at a place where there is something significant to move forward on. So we'll keep at it.
But our hot spring spa, Westville
It's a
Hot
cool
Spring
spring.
Spa is probably is not.
Yeah, you're not gonna replace Iceland's Blue Lagoon with the Westville Blue Lagoon.
On the other hand, no one has been suing the town for having been scalded in it, so.
Yeah.
There's always a plus.
Just on the idea of finding heat and turning it into something that can both heat and cool, or sources that can do both. There's a company in Britain who is going around and they drill a very deep hole and they put in a system that will then do district heating and cooling. And the efficiency is absolutely amazing. And so I'm picturing one of these compact developments that we're looking at and doing a system like that so that everyone would have access to that. Because whereas a normal air-to-air heat exchanger, like a mini split that we have in our homes, they're efficient. But this ground source one, because when you get down below 5 or 6 or 7 feet or so, the earth stays at a fairly constant temperature. And it's a great temperature for getting heat out of it and cooling it. And when you are cooling, you're putting heat back into the ground, which actually stays there and helps you when you get to the next heating season. So I don't know if anyone's doing that in North America, but it's something that hopefully one day we'll see happen. So we'll have district heating with ground source heat. And that's it from me this evening.
All right. Delegations or issues, on issues or discussion arising from the business and/or other business?
This is that time we were talking about.
Yes. Would you gentlemen like to speak on anything or have any questions that you'd like answered about something? Okay.
Okay.
It's way better than TV.
The
No, that, yeah.
It's already happened. There- Absolutely,
Done.
yeah.
Yeah.
But, so R2 gives you, as of right, 2 units. But you can also, through site plan approval, I think you can do 4 units. And site plan approvals usually aren't that challenging. They can be contentious in certain instances, but typically they're not. And so if you find a decent-sized piece of land, you could, without, going through crazy hoops, you could actually do 4 nice compact units on it. We
I
can
was-
talk about the process down the road if you're interested.
What I was speaking of was was in relation to the major plan amendments that
Right.
that's what we were, bigger chunks of other processes, I guess, contained within.
So at
Yeah.
the federal level, because the housing crisis is across the country, the housing minister, Sean Fraser,
to speed
is
that up.
very interested in seeing
Cut the burden.
basically municipal land use bylaws and planning strategies revised to make it easier to develop more density and more housing, especially at the affordable end of the spectrum. And so there's a fair bit of pressure on municipalities to work on their planning strategies and land use bylaws. But they're complex things and they're lengthy. I think between the two of them, there's some 200 pages that you have to think about, and there's tentacles that go all throughout. So if you tweak one thing, it can influence many other things. So it takes a bit of work to revise them. And also, not everyone's that excited about the notion of more housing being built, because it's great if it's somewhere else, but just not necessarily beside them.
NIMBY, yep.
Have you seen any duplex applications since that passed?
Well, we've had one single-family housing application happen recently, but everything else that we're seeing is in multiples.
Which is pretty exciting.
It's great, yeah.
It sure is. 24 at a time is very welcome.
Well, it's not just about affordability and housing, it's also, it's far more efficient. Like you're using less materials to build housing, you have less space to heat, you have fewer walls, roofs and floors that are hemorrhaging
Better
heat.
utilization of
Absolutely.
the
It's-
property itself.
It's odd that we thought building single standalones all this time was the best way to go.
This is a trend that it's all over it's across the country. I mean, this is the change, and it's a paradigm shift in thinking, really, with regard to planning and new developments. And so it's nice to see it happening here in Westville.
Especially in rural Nova Scotia.
Exactly.
It's not, yeah, yeah.
That's an oddity.
Even the duplex that was built on North Main and another one to follow, I mean, that's an improvement from the old days when it was one at a time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is turning out to be a nice little development there once the grounds are fixed up and
Yeah.
so on.
I'm looking forward to the next one going and get some landscape
The next
going.
one will be started when, do we know?
I haven't spoken with the project manager recently. I spoke with him almost daily when he was building them.
Yeah.
He's been quiet for a while. He's probably he's moved in, so he's living in one of them and he's quite enjoying it.
Yeah.
I'll give him a ring one of these days and get back to you with that.
And the other side, of course, is occupied as well.
It is, yeah. Well, the person who sold the big house moved into that
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
so.
exactly.
Byron, did you have any other questions, or just, you know where to find me if you ever want to chat about a development?
All right, that concludes our, this portion of the meeting. We'll have a motion to go in camera.
So moved.
Second.
Motion moved and seconded. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Can we have a short pass real quick?
You certainly can.
And we got to push the buttons anyway.